Hello, and thank you for coming to our presentation tonight with the Portage County Democrats Club. We are about 2 months old at this point, so we're doing pretty good with that. And we have invited Kyle Herman to come and talk to us about what is ranked choice voting and how it can benefit voters. And he is a well-known organizer for ranked choice voting because he's part of the group that started it for this the Rank the Vote group. So I will let him brag about himself a little bit more here and then start the presentation. Please come on up, Kyle.
Thank you, Danielle, and thank you. Thank you to the club for organizing this nonpartisan event open to everyone to learn about ranked choice voting. Yes, I'm Kyle Herman. I was part of the group that started Rank the Vote Ohio back in 2020. We were all volunteers. We were excited about the successes that it was having in Maine and then Alaska and cities across the country. And so thanks for the opportunity to share it all with you. And also thank you to the club for organizing this interactive in-person experience of it. You all have ballots at your tables with chips that you can try during the presentation and then rank your preferences. And then we will do a demonstration at the end of how the votes are counted. And so you're used to voting this way where you only have one choice. This is the ballot as it would have looked in Maine the first time that they used ranked choice voting. If they hadn't used it, you only get to pick one, even if you have 4 choices, sort of like with your chips. You would only be allowed to vote for one, like we do in our current system. But the system that Maine voted to switch to in 2016 and then used for the first time in 2018, it allowed them to rank their choices, which allowed for more candidates to run without worry about being spoilers. And so what actually happened in this real life congressional election is there were a Democrat and a Republican, but there were also 2 independents. And so nobody had a majority after the first round. The Republican actually had less than 50%, and then the Democrat had a little less than that. But instead of that being the end of it, ranked choice voting requires a majority to win. So the 2 independents, those votes got to count still for those voters' second choices. And it turned out that those voters preferred the Democrat to the Republican. So it showed that the Democrat won a majority if it had been a 2-way race. And so it allowed voters to still have more choices of who they wanted to actually rank first, but it solved that problem. And so it was a great real life example of how it worked. Now, another problem that ranked choice voting solves is the problem of motivation to vote. Because when we ask people why they don't vote, what do you think some of the most common responses are? Anybody? No choices. They feel like they have choices to begin with, right? Anybody else?
They don't listen to us anyway.
Yeah, they don't listen to us anyway. Exactly. They feel like that no one really represents them. Nothing will change. The system is broken anyways, and so
they just hate everybody.
Yeah, they just hate everybody, and they just feel like, oh well, if there's only 2 choices and nothing else, and but those of us who have been politically active, I know we spend a lot of time focusing on this small sliver of people who vote third parties and trying to say, oh no, you're going to waste your vote. You have to choose one of the lesser evils, right? And then the frustration. But there are so many people who maybe even wish that they could vote for somebody else, but the plurality of people choose not to vote at all because for those reasons that you said, they feel like they don't have a real choice. And so we saw the problem of the spoiler effect very clearly. I'm sure most of us remember the 2000 election where there was a tiny sliver of a difference. Yeah, I could see some of you shaking your heads. A 537 vote difference out of over 6 million votes, and of course, Ralph Nader was called a spoiler and blamed for George Bush winning Florida and thus the presidency, even though the vast majority of Nader voters we know preferred Gore. And so things could have been very different if you had ranked choice voting, and if those voters hadn't felt like they were wasting their votes by having Nader as their first choice. Another problem that ranked choice voting solves is these crowded primaries that we have on both sides, where we spend a lot of time debating when we have a crowded field who is the most electable to send into a general election. Or with ranked choice voting, instead of just thinking, oh, I don't want to waste my vote on something that doesn't have a chance, you can actually be honest about who your choices are, ranking first, second, third, fourth, and fifth, and so forth, so that each party can actually be stronger in putting forward a nominee who has support from a majority, a broader proportion of the party. And so the voting system itself is a problem because it allows for the spoiler effect. We don't require a majority to win in Ohio. That's why we feel stuck. And it also discourages new candidates from running. We have this idea of who's the most electable, who is it that we usually end up nominating? It's old white men, right? And I'm not going to think it's old white men, hopefully on someday, but imagine if we could allow young people to run, allow more people of color to run, and have voters decide who's actually electable instead of us all just thinking, oh, who should I put my one vote to? And so it's the system that is actually restricting us. And this is very evident last year. The example that we have is from a Republican congressional primary down in southwest Ohio that had 11 candidates, and the winner only had 25%. So even though 75% voted against them, because Ohio and our parties don't require a majority to win, this person won in a gerrymandered red district with 25% of the vote, and then of course went on to win the seat in Congress because it's rigged by gerrymandering. And so other states, like Virginia, for example, the Republican Party actually uses ranked choice voting on its own for its primaries, so that they can have a majority winner go stronger into the general election. And it's something that the Democrats are now considering too, because they actually just have their primaries, and the candidate for lieutenant governor won with 27% just this past week. And so ranked choice voting, even internally for our party, can help to solve the problem. And so that's why we think that ranked choice voting is the solution, because it allows voters to be more honest in voting for who we really want, and it requires that majority to win instead of just the plurality like in our current system in Ohio. So here is an example of an election with ranked choice voting where you have 5 candidates. What happens when one of them starts off with 55% of first choice votes? Do we have a winner? Yeah, we have a winner, because if somebody has a majority from the beginning, you don't need to do the whole ranked choice. The whole point is to get somebody with more than 50%, and so if they start off with that, that's great. But what happens if the votes are a little more spread out, and the top candidate only has 35% of the vote? Do we have a winner in this race? No. Under Ohio's current system, we would. That person would win with 35%, even though 65% voted against them. But with ranked choice voting, what we do next is we take the candidate with the lowest number of votes and we eliminate them just like we would in a traditional runoff election. But instead of those votes being wasted, we give them to the candidates who those voters ranked second. Is everyone following? Okay, cool. So do we have a winner now? No, because none of the candidates has more than 50%. So again, we were down to 4 candidates. We eliminate the 4th place candidate, and we again look at who those voters ranked as their next choices and give them to the 3 remaining candidates. And do we have a winner now? No, because none of them has more than 50%. Yes, Denise?
It's when the 14% person has dropped off, it's who they voted for second.
It's for who they voted second or third. Your vote will always count for the candidate who is still in the race, who you voted highest. Yeah, so if somebody started by like ranking the teal candidate first and then the yellow candidate second, then their third choice would count for whichever candidate is still left, or yeah. And so since we still don't have a majority, then the third place candidate in this instance, they would be eliminated and their votes would be redistributed. And so once you add up those votes, then it turns out the candidate who started off with the second highest number of votes was actually preferred by a majority of voters if it had been a two-way race between them and the candidate who had started off with the highest number of first choices. Cool. So not only does this change the outcome of who actually wins races, the more important thing is it actually changes the culture of campaigning to allow a broader variety of candidates to run from across the political spectrum and incentivizes them to cooperate for the common good. Because instead of just having this binary of like, oh, we're just going to hate each other, you actually have to distinguish yourself as a candidate and show that you're willing to work together. And so this actually was shown in real life in Alaska when Mary Peltola and Lisa Murkowski, Mary Peltola was, she's a Democrat who was elected to Congress at the same time that Lisa Murkowski, a moderate Republican, was elected to the Senate. They actually said that they were ranking each other first. Now, what would happen if a Democrat and Republican in a state like Ohio said that they were going to rank each other first? They get primaried. They get kicked out of the party, right? And so ranked choice voting allows candidates from different parties to say like, hey, we're going to work together for the common good instead of only appealing to the extremes in the party base. Another benefit is that instead of framing the parties as on this binary left-right spectrum, we have a greater variety of ideas and ideologies that can be included if you can have 4 or 5 candidates running. The candidates can actually distinguish themselves by different views that don't fit on this, what I think most of us see as actually a fake sort of like left-right binary, when we have such a breadth of issues and questions of character and things that don't necessarily fit on that left-right ideological spectrum. Ranked choice voting has also been shown to increase voter turnout in most of the places that it's been used. It's been used for decades in cities in California, where studies have shown on average an increased turnout by about 10% because voters feel more confident that their votes will actually matter. And so Maine and Alaska are using ranked choice voting statewide, but it's also currently being used in about 50 cities across the country, including in New York City, where they have their Democratic primary tomorrow. And so that should be interesting to watch, although they do wait longer than most jurisdictions for absentee ballots to arrive. So we might not know the results tomorrow, but it should be interesting to see. And then, as I mentioned before, in different states, parties use ranked choice voting for their own primaries. Several Democratic states used ranked choice voting for the 2020 primaries because it allowed voters to have a wider variety of choices. And there are actually 6 southern states that use ranked choice for military and overseas voting. States like Georgia, for example, that have runoffs if nobody gets a winner, but instead of having a whole wasteful runoff election, especially for military and overseas voters, they just put who their backup choices are with ranked choice voting, so that if there is a runoff that's necessary, their votes can still be counted for their next choices. And so that's why we founded Rank the Vote Ohio in 2020. This is a photo from a statewide meeting we had a few years ago. I'm still the only full-time staff. We're very grassroots driven, but we have just crossed more than 24,000 registered voters, and we're trying to show that we have enough support in Ohio to bring ranked choice voting back. Because it actually turns out Ohio has a history with using ranked choice voting. There were 5 cities that used RCV between 1913 and 1960. And Ashtabula was actually the first city in the United States to use ranked choice voting to achieve proportional representation. The other cities were Cleveland, Cincinnati, Hamilton, and Toledo. And the reason that it eventually got repealed is because the party bosses of the time did not like that it increased the diversity of representation on the city councils. Imagine that, right? And not just the political diversity, but also ranked choice voting led to some of the first women and African Americans being elected in several of these cities. And so there was also a racist backlash to it as well. But ranked choice voting is now having a sort of modern renaissance as more and more cities and states look to bring it back. However, there is in our state house a bipartisan bill that is attempting to ban ranked choice voting, but they know that they cannot outright ban it at the local level because it's protected by home rule. Because when ranked choice voting was used in Ohio last century, the Ohio Supreme Court ruled that it's a constitutional form of voting that is protected by the home rule powers of local self-government. And so what this bill does is they say, well, we're just going to effectively ban ranked choice by taking away the local government funds from any city that uses ranked choice voting. And so it's a backdoor way because they know that if people use it at the local level, they'll like it and they'll want it at the state level and they'll want to do a constitutional amendment for it. And so we're actually very confident that this would also be unconstitutional for them to ban it through coercion instead of just outright banning it. And so there are actually several cities now that have been going through the charter review commission processes, and their city councils are looking at putting ranked choice voting on the ballot anyways, despite this threat of a ban bill. Cleveland Heights and Lakewood this year, they're already had their charter review commissions recommend it. And then there are some other cities like Stowe, for example, where I'm from, our charter review commission recommended ranked choice voting. And so we're optimistic that this year or next year, we'll be bringing RCV back at the local level. So the way that we're eventually going to bring ranked choice voting to Ohio, hopefully we'll have these bases of support in cities as we work our way up to the statewide level, showing that we have enough people power. As you know from the attempt to ban gerrymandering and the other amendments we worked on, it takes 414,000 valid signatures to get on the ballot, and that can cost like $10 million to collect them, even in addition to all the volunteer power. And so what we're doing at Rank the Vote Ohio, we're just trying to show that we have enough interest and support to get those sort of investments. We're also building a really diverse, multi-partisan coalition in order to show that this is not a partisan issue because we have parties from across the political spectrum that support ranked choice. One thing that obviously, like, we have a lot of the more third parties that are quick to endorse it, but there are also county parties that are starting to look, even within the major parties, endorsing it for local elections or even in favor of statewide. And that's something I'm talking with the new Democratic Party chair about, is how to have that conversation within the Democratic Party about how we might be able to strengthen the party by using RCV internally for primaries, or to allow counties to endorse it, at least at the local level. And so if you want to, if you're able to help, we have our website, rtbo.org/action, where there are different ways to get involved. The most important is to sign our online petition, just to show that, help build our list to show that we have support for ranked choice voting, because we have the 24,000 supporters so far, but we know that we'll eventually need those 414,000 signatures. But we also have ways to volunteer, to donate, and we have events like tomorrow. We actually have our statewide meeting. We'll be screening a 30-minute version of a feature documentary called Majority Rules that is about the use of ranked choice voting in Alaska. And now for the interactive parts, before we move on to questions. Hopefully, while I've been speaking, you've had a chance to try the different flavors of chips in front of you, but if not, now is a good time to do that. And originally the idea had been to reward everyone with whatever the top choice was, but it turns out the club had enough for everybody to actually try them before you rank them if you want to. So if you don't have a ballot, we have a couple extras up here, and we have some extra chips up here if you don't have them either. But hopefully you figured out how to rank them by now. You just, for your first choice in the first column, second choice in the second column, and so forth. And if you really don't like any of them, then you don't have to rank them. You can rank as many or as few as you want, but your vote will always count for the one that you rank the highest that is still in the race, if none of them have reached a majority. So while you're all trying the chips and filling out those ballots, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Yes?
How much time, extra time will it take to do all of it? Some people are actually upset about not knowing election day.
So the tabulation, the question was, how much extra time will it take because of the rankings? Most places that use ranked choice voting, you still know the first round results the night of or the morning after the election. And once you have all the votes in, the tabulation is instantaneous. And the places like Alaska and Maine, they do a very good job of showing the transparency of going round by round and showing, here are the first round results, and if no one has a majority, they show which candidate is eliminated and how many of those votes transfer to each of those other candidates. But in some jurisdictions, it does take a little extra time to get all of the ballots to be able to do the tabulations for the second and third rounds and stuff if no one gets a majority, because places like New York and Alaska in particular, they have like 10 days, up to 10 days for absentee ballots to come in. And that's especially because in Alaska, they need to fly ballots in from the most remote parts of our country in order to centralize and tabulate them. But once you have the ballots in, it's pretty much instantaneous for you to know the results. But most places, like cities like Minneapolis, it's like the night of, they show, like, here's the first round results, here's the preliminaries for the next round. Yeah. Yes?
Does our machines have to be changed?
Good question. The question is, would our voting machines need to be changed? The answer is that all of the machines in Ohio are already ranked choice voting capable. They only need a software update, and we actually got confirmation from the Kyle County Board of Elections a couple years ago that if any city was to pass a charter amendment for ranked choice voting, then that would cause the Board of Elections to request that software update, and the cost would be borne by the state. But those costs would actually be very minimal because they're already actually being included in the routine software updates from all 5 of these major companies, because they're already using ranked choice. These same companies are already using ranked choice voting in other states.
Because you know, cost is going to be a big
Oh, we know. Yeah, that's why we did our research with the cost and found out that the cost is actually minimal to just do these software updates. You don't need to replace the machines. And we've actually been in contact with the Ohio Association of Election Administrators for like a couple years now to make sure that we're kind of like getting ahead so that they know that they have resources from national organizations like Fair Vote and RCV Resource Center that have helped to implement RCV in other states. Yes?
Well, do you know if any cities, either in Portage County or in Ohio, are using ranked choice?
So no cities in Ohio are currently using ranked choice voting, but there are several where their city councils are considering whether to put it on the ballot as a charter amendment so that they could use it in the future.
I just thought if there was someone using it, it would be interesting to go.
It would be, yeah, but not yet in Ohio since last century, but several cities are trying to be the first to, racing to be the first to bring it back. Yeah. Other questions, or do we have the ballots? Oh, I see that we're counting them. Cool.
Yeah, we figured.
Yes.
How does the system account for if somebody chooses like 2 first place choices and or multiples of any one choice?
Right. So that's overvoting or undervoting, and it's treated the same as if it happens under our current system. For example, when we have like at-large city council elections in Stowe, you're asked to vote for up to 3. If someone votes for 4, then the machine spits out the ballot and notifies you that there is an overvote. And so then you have an opportunity to go correct it. And it's the same way with ranked choice voting. It will tell you if there's an overvote and give you the opportunity to correct it. Yeah.
Being on the Board of Election, I can tell you what happens now. If in fact someone has an overvote on a ballot, that ballot is kicked out from the scanner. It goes to a team of 1D and 1R at the Board of Elections. So that ultimately the director, deputy director, that is a DMR, they decide. If they can't agree, then it comes to the board, the 4 members of the board, and we vote on it. Because there are people that might have put the mark inadvertently, might have not been sure of scratch things out, but that's how that's handled now.
Yes.
First of all, thanks for coming. You say that you already discussed this with the new
Yeah, so I ran for party chair as well alongside Kathleen Clyde, and I actually became friends with her during the process. And as we talked, she said that she was open to exploring ranked choice voting, either for internal party primaries or supporting it. But of course, like the chair does not have the legislative power of the party's executive committee at the state level that endorses policies. But one of the things we did talk about was the potential for having decentralized leadership, allowing counties to endorse policies. But she made no commitment about how, she said she needed to continue studying ranked choice voting, but she said at the very least she does not support the ban bill. Yeah. Yes.
I may have missed this, but what are the Republicans trying to roadblock this?
How are the Republicans trying to roadblock this?
Yeah.
So with the ban bill, they are claiming that ranked choice voting is too confusing, and so therefore voters must be protected from it. And so, and there is a Democrat in the state Senate who is making that same argument that he ran for party chair as well, and he's very heavily involved with Franklin County politics in Columbus, and he wants the party to be able to choose who they want behind the scenes and doesn't want competition from any third parties. And so basically you have people on both sides who are trying to make excuses to suppress voters' choices to limit competition for their own parties.
So there's nothing organized to prevent this from being voted on.
So they have the ban bill, Senate Bill 63, that would be a statewide ban, which is like meaningless because we would need a constitutional amendment anyways. But they're also trying to stop cities from doing it with this financial punishment, but we're confident that that's also unconstitutional. And yeah.
But does unconstitutional mean anything?
That's a good question, right? It's hard to have faith in our courts nowadays. But, does unconstitutional mean anything nowadays? Was the question. But yeah, yeah. But we even if the law goes through, I mean, we're also like making the argument preemptively to Governor DeWine that Republican governors in other states have actually vetoed similar bills because they so clearly go against home rule. Like Governor Burgum from North Dakota, he actually vetoed a similar bill in North Dakota, and so we're trying to. It doesn't make sense for Republicans or Democrats to be so going against home rule in such ways. It's because like it's very clearly against the spirit of the Constitution, but they're just the claim they actually make in the ban bill is, oh well, we were able to confiscate traffic camera fines for the amount of revenue generated from traffic cameras, so therefore they think they can just take away all local government funds for exercising what is not just a police power like traffic cameras, but a fundamental power of local self-government that is has been constitutionally upheld. And so we're trying to at least help the governor understand that so that he could hopefully veto it if it goes through. But either way, we think that we have enough legal ways to even get around the type of language that is in the bill.
What's the timeline you think that this
We aren't sure. So it was first introduced 2 years ago, and we've testified at 3 separate hearings against it. With people power, because it's really only a handful of out-of-state dark money groups that are pushing it. These groups that were involved with the Stop the Steal conspiracy that are funded by Leonard Leo and Dick Uihlein, who tried to pass that amendment in August 2023 to try to make ballot initiatives harder to even get on the ballot. It's these same bad actors, Heritage Foundation, Project 2025 folks. It's these same groups that are trying to suppress democracy, that are trying to suppress ranked choice voting. And so it's unclear to us how much of a priority it actually is for the state house, because what we've seen is that when certain Republican legislators like Teresa Gavarone, who was the one who changed the ballot language for the gerrymandering amendment to say that it would require gerrymandering. So she's the lead sponsor of this bill because, and for a lot of the bad anti-democracy bills at the state house, because she wanted to run for Secretary of State, and she knew that in order to get her party's nomination, she had to be the queen of voter suppression. And so that was her angle for a long time. But now that she's not running for Secretary of State, it's kind of unclear who's motivated to be pushing this.
Kyle, at our first go round, and then we need some guidance.
Okay.
The veggie straws got 0.04%. The pirate booty, I can't believe I'm saying that. It is 22.29%. The Lays were 48%. and the Cheetos were 33.3%.
Okay.
So now what do we do?
So we start off by reallocating the veggie straws that was probably like one vote, right?
It was one vote.
Okay. And it helps if you put them in order of their first place votes. If you make like 4 piles.
Okay, well, we didn't do that.
That's cool. Yeah, no.
We're getting the math part of this.
No, that's
in person.
perfect. Yeah.
The veggies, then they, okay, so there's the first.
There's our veggie straw. Okay, and then what?
And so if you put the rest in piles of their first choice votes, and then if you can tell us who the veggie straw first choice voted for as their second choice.
Pirate Booty.
Pirate Booty. Okay. So now that will be added to.
So now it's 7 votes.
Okay.
And yeah, because there's no getting rid of the bad all these ones, so we're not get that anymore. So we get
So what are the numbered totals now?
Okay, so good. I'm glad that you're good. Okay, so the number totals now are 7 for the Pirate Booty. Number is 11 for the Lays and 9 for the Cheetos.
Okay. So now since Pirate Booty is in third place, Pirate Booty gets eliminated. Right? But you'll still get your preference between the Cheetos and the Lays.
So is it the second vote that we look for then?
Yes.
The second on the Pirate Booty, right?
The second on the Pirate Booty, and it'll be the third for the person who voted veggie straws, then Pirate Booty, and then they'll get their third choice.
Okay, so the third choice. So we got because they went to Cheetos, so here we are.
So the first place, Pirate Booty.
I now feel like understand what it's like to hand count.
Okay,
Votes.
here's the Pirate Booty first place one.
This is our Pirate Booty first
Then
place.
we're left
So we're
with
looking
Lay's
for
and
our
Cheetos
second
after
one.
this, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's basically coming down to a runoff between
Okay,
the Lays and the
Lays and
Cheetos.
Cheetos.
Okay, so our Lays. And then we now have one Lay because someone want like the Pirate Booty, then veggie straws.
Okay.
So,
This is another Pirate Booty veggie straw. That's kind of interesting.
yeah,
Okay.
these were interesting.
Good. It's a good variety. It's always fun when there isn't a
Yeah.
clear winner from the
Pirate
beginning.
Booty veggie straw. This makes no sense. Unless you like Pirate Booty veggie straw.
Yeah.
Right? Oh my gosh, it's yet another one. What did all of us call you Pirate Booty veggie straw?
Good correlation. It's
Oh my gosh, it's another one.
Right.
Okay.
Right. There wasn't a clear, yeah.
But those are a lot of people whose vote would be gone.
Right.
That's true. So they wouldn't, if this was the way we do our usual elections in Ohio, those votes would have been wasted. But now they can at least count for their preference between the final two.
And we now have 59.2% for, I don't want to guess, Lay.
Lay.
Okay. So we have a winner.
I'll take anybody.
So you're gonna have a hard time getting.
Yeah.
And what happens is confusion. And when there's confusion, you just, I don't want it, I want the over.
Yeah, and there is a bit of a learning curve, but once people understand that, oh, this means that my vote can actually matter by more choices, then people understand, and there's a different way of sort of reporting, and we're actually seeing it happening in New York City, because it was very new when they used it 4 years ago in 2021, but now the reports are that they have had double early voting turnout, and it has been especially high among younger people. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, this is a great system, so they have everybody exactly the nice thing is, this is a very rudimentary system with paper ballots. However, there are a lot of nice digital tools that you should type in, like building myself, that would be at the paper first. That show you that breakdown where, oh, you're going away from seeing distributed. You know, it's kind of more visual. So we're building more and more good engineering tools. It's
Questions they vote, people in here, we want that. And I mean, that alone draws me, because I almost would have come tonight, because I thought, that's just too confusing, I just want to vote for somebody.
Yeah.
But you're right, there's been times where I think, I've never missed a vote, but there's been times where I think, I don't know if I want to vote at all.
Yeah.
Right.
And yeah,
For this, for example, so the Cheetos originally, without doing the right choice, if you just voted between Cheetos and Lay's, Cheetos had 33.
Oh, you want
Yeah, the very first.
Cheetos with a one, is that what you said?
No, Cheetos wouldn't have won.
No, Cheetos was 33, Lay's was 48, but it ended up with Cheetos 48, Lay's 59%.
I see.
So you can see
Yeah.
how that, those second, third, whatever, fourth choice votes, yeah.
When the first, when you first did those numbers, that's exactly how I thought, whoa, okay.
and we have a question back here, but first I wanted to point out that you can also do this online. I made a QR code for this ballot in particular too, and so afterwards I can like input our votes on paper, and then we can add anybody else who wants to vote online. And then, like Daniel said, there are some visuals that we can create to show, like in a bar graph, of like how the votes move from round to round that can help explain it too. Yeah.
That's still a lesson. One I did too was like once we were kids, we had to give a cake, and it was like seafood, burgers, pizza, pasta, and one other. But the way we got the information is what would have won is a very short thing what you did was 5 for seafood. And the people who really like seafood.
Yeah.
But that would have won, but when it kind of distributed, or people like burgers fell off and this fell off, and ultimately the one was always been pizza. We all agree on pizza. And not all of us like shellfish. And people that love shellfish really love shellfish. I don't go to little, lobster thing, but it had this little crawdad or whatever, it's spooky. I couldn't even eat it, it creeped me out. So if we got here and had shellfish, I'd be like picky. I don't because I'm not even, so it really wasn't anything because ultimately, people were trying to love it. So it's pretty
Was there a question here?
I'm not sure because it's kind of hard to figure what people are saying. But it seems to me like Lay's had the highest numbers.
Yeah.
Cheetos had the second highest number. So is this always, it's not always good, it's not what it's not.
Right. So actually, come from behind wins are actually pretty rare. Most times, the leader will end up having the majority, but this at least allows voters to have other options before the runoff shows who actually has the majority support. Yeah, and so like even like with Lay's starting off with 48%, that's pretty likely in a four-way race they're going to get the majority. But at least it helps to decrease the polarization of people feeling like, oh, I only have to vote for like these two extremes if there are a greater diversity of options. Yeah.
3 more people would have voted for higher duty instead, or than Cheetos would have knocked off the table. So it's because we have a very small sample size here. But it could have been a completely different idea of this whole thing. Just, just seeing where it was. Cheetos, like on the second group, this is the interesting thing. On the second group, 12 people voted for veggie straw. And the second choice, higher food was 4. Lay's was only 4. And so Cheetos was then 7 on the second vote. And so it's if those would have been like, if priority would have been really little on the first vote, we could have been ending up with 50 straws.
But it's interesting because we get more data than we would from the way we currently do elections, when you can see, like, imagine if these were parties or candidates, you could see like, oh wow, there is actually a lot of underlying support for certain issues and stuff like that we don't have an ability to see from the way we currently do elections. And so it's more about, that's why it's more about who wins. Like, because actually the result of who wins, it does not happen that often, but it's more about changing the culture and the incentive structure in order to make it more cooperative and to make it more about like the nuance of policy ideas instead of just the like lesser of two evils argument.
And if Cheetos would have been nicer to play, maybe it wouldn't have been so much of a problem.
Yeah.
I think that's my point, that kids is real life, Lay's was backed by some dark money, very negative ads, right? And Cheetos really have the issues and the policy explained well, all from Paris, right? And it could be that all the people that voted for them, their second choice.
Yeah.
So changes the way candidates have to be.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also to that point, since we're Democrats, say there was an orange Cheeto villain in the race, then you could have the other three all team up to stop them. Right, yeah. Yes?
Are there studies at all done to like show if it's even necessary to have all the extra steps, or at what point does everybody's first place choice, whoever's the 40 or 30, whatever percent, actually just end up winning like the Lays? And like, how much does it matter if it's just extra steps or more work, more money, no reason?
Yeah, so it's hard to study a like chicken and egg sort of example, because most of the races that we have now, when we say that like 95% would have had the same outcome anyways, those races also don't tend to have the type of variety that could have changed the results. And so there are groups like the American Bar Association that have compiled a ton of the data from ranked choice voting elections and then published it, and have shown that regardless of changing the outcome, we have seen increased voter participation. We have seen greater diversity of candidates running and winning in RCV elections. For example, New York City in 2021, when it used ranked choice voting for the first time, even though Eric Adams was the leading candidate for mayor and then went on to also win through the ranked choice voting election, what we also saw was the highest voter turnout since the 1980s. We saw the highest ever number of women and people of color elected to city council. And so there are all these benefits to ranked choice voting that can't just be quantified by who like won in a certain election. Yeah.
Yeah, say just on that, because I'm more independent than anything. I do like to focus on the candidates, and I always wanted someone like Bernie Sanders or someone like that kind of have a shot at it. But I had that same feeling. I'm like, well, I might as well not even vote because they're not going to give me anyone that I want, and I don't want to waste it. And I don't want to, so I think those little things encourage people to vote by allowing people to get the support they need, and then at least if that doesn't work out, and that doesn't, I can like go to the next side instead of making my vote, then what's going to be the So I felt that same like aversion to voting all, and this inspires me to go there and tell them what I think. So I think there is that underlying piece that is kind of unquantifiable in current moments
that inspires us to participate. And I think participating is
Yeah. And it helps give more legitimacy to whoever wins. They're able to say, hey, I won a majority, instead of that open question of like, ooh, like, for example, in Hudson, there is bipartisan support on their city council for ranked choice voting now, because a few elections ago, they had a city council race that somebody won with only 38% of the vote in a four-way race. And so that entire person's term, they were seen as like divisive, because the question was hanging over of like, well, if 62% of people didn't vote for this person, like, are they actually legitimate? And so requiring that majority to win actually helps give elected officials more legitimacy. Yeah.
I would rephrase that to the person ultimately elected has more accountability.
Yes.
To their voters, instead of I only got to appeal to 25% of them, so it doesn't matter what I do and what the rest of them are chanting or demonstrating about. I just need 25%.
Yeah. Excellent
so
framing, Denise.
Accountability becomes important.
Right.
Which is something we don't have.
Yeah, the accountability aspect of being accountable to a majority of voters.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Even though they didn't vote for me first,
right,
I'm still accountable to them because they got me over the line.
Yeah, and then elected officials can actually see where those votes came from and say like, oh, I need to work harder. And was this your point? Yeah, because then they got to say, oh, I got to work hard to also appeal to these groups of people who ranked me second. Yeah.
I was going to say, even in this, the pirate booty, if you had younger people in here, that pirate booty would have won. Just saying. I mean, so the more people that come in, the chances could go any which way.
Yeah.
I didn't want to vote for Cheeto because it's on patriotism, but I like Cheeto.
Sorry. Yes.
Explain to me how this helps the severity of gerrymandered district wording.
So ranked choice voting can help reduce the harms of gerrymandering by allowing a greater variety of candidates to run competitively. So like, even if a district is gerrymandered very red, it can allow voters to vote for which shade of red or purple or yellow or green or whatever without the fear of a spoiler. So instead of feeling stuck with like, oh, we're going to have a sacrificial Democrat going against whoever the Republican nominee is, who only has support from the tiny sliver that vote in the primary, if you had ranked choice voting with like a final five, then you could have a greater diversity of candidates from across the political spectrum that would have to appeal to actually win a majority.
So those spoiler candidates that happened in Florida a couple of years ago to siphon off votes, and they did it specifically for that purpose,
yeah,
would be spoiled in that case.
Yeah, and we see this all the time with the two major parties intentionally trying to elevate spoilers. And it's frustrating to me talking with so many young people who have this idea of like, oh, well, I don't want to vote for the Democrat because I disagree with them on this one issue, so I'm going to vote for this third party candidate for my conscience, right? And it's like, I hate having those arguments, because if we had a system like ranked choice voting, it would be, we could say, okay, vote for who your conscience wants you to vote for your first choice, but then rank the Democrats second to stop the worst case scenario, right? Yeah. Any other comments, questions? Yeah, Denise.
I guess my only other comment to you, Vicki, who said this can be confusing, which will mean some people just won't like it. To me, anything that makes us and should make voters think about what they're doing. And this just makes me have to think a little bit more. I like that idea.
Yeah.
I think that it should appeal, instead of that being an anti, you're not smart enough to figure this out. I think it's preferred of you're smart enough, now put your, kindergarten thinking cap on and think about it instead of just reacting.
There's enough of us that are trying to
Yeah.
say it in different languages, in different
Yeah.
variations, to make sure that enough of us get in the way that we want. So it is, we are, like you said, we're gonna move on it. So there's a timeline on it, we'll fight real hard.
Yeah.
But
You
when our,
can be a Democrat and not believe in everything. Let's face it.
That's probably true of most of
Republican, I'm
us.
sure they don't believe in everything.
Or all the independents out
Yeah,
there.
it would be hard to find a party that hears everything is okay with you.
And you look at, Portage County is primarily independent.
You know what? Absolutely.
It's the unaffiliated, yeah.
Absolutely. I thought about becoming an independent. I really did.
Well, thank you for having me. And
Thank you.
Yeah.